In this video, we're going to be deep diving into Dave Canterbury's 10 C's of survival, and we're going to look at it with our urban lens to see if these wilderness survival items are warranted to include in an urban evacuation kit. Let's get started. If you're not already familiar with Dave Canterbury, you definitely need to check him out. He's an awesome survivalist that has provided the community with so much valuable information on how to survive wilderness survival situations. And he's provided something called the 10 C's of survival. So he has a C for cutting tools. He has a C for combustion devices, for cover like emergency shelter and more. This is just an easier way to remember all the items that you need to include in a survival situation. Now, I've been using the 10 C's of survival in my emergency kits like my bug out bag and get home bag as more of a baseline of equipment to include in that particular kit, just to ensure that I have all the fundamentals in place before expanding upon it with things that are more custom for my personal needs. In the last video, we did a review of all the items that the Pathfinder School recommends including for the basic survival equipment list, which is based off of the 10 C's of survival. But in my opinion, some of these items are better served in a wilderness survival situation than in an urban survival situation. If you're in a survival situation, like the things that we see on Naked and Afraid, for example, or Dual Survival, or one of those survival shows, they're usually focusing on the rule of three. So oftentimes they're putting together their shelter and they're getting their fire put into place, and then they're looking for water and how to filter the water and make it safe to drink, and then next they're looking at ways of getting food. The 10 C's of survival really helps out in those type of situations. But in an urban environment, we did a deep dive into the various evacuation scenarios, and oftentimes you might just be evacuating to your backyard or to a neighbor's house or to a motel that's at the other end of town to get out of an emergency situation, for example, like a wildfire that's impacted your neighborhood. So for a lot of us urban and suburban preppers, we might not be going out into the middle of the woods. We might just be going into a parking lot. So let's look at all these 10 C's of survival and see if they're still warranted to include in an urban evacuation kit. Starting off first with the cutting tools, we have a fixed blade knife and a folding saw. Now definitely I think you should have a fixed blade knife. There's so many different things you could do with a fixed blade knife, but the folding saw might be something you might want to consider not including in an urban evacuation kit and replacing with something else. However, the Baco Laplander that Dave Canterbury recommends is so lightweight and compact, it doesn't really hurt to include it in your evacuation kit. You can make a strong case saying that bolt cutters would be more appropriate to include in an urban evacuation kit than a saw. The ones made by Nipex are my personal favorite. Next, we have the combustion tools. And I recently did a video saying that ferrocerium rods are overrated for an urban environment. I don't want to be making a bird's nest and making a bunch of sparks to trying to start a fire. I just want to use my Bic lighter, have some Vaseline with cotton balls, start the fire, and go from there. So in my opinion, I think a ferrocerium rod isn't as warranted in an urban environment as it is in a wilderness survival situation. So I'm saying toss the ferrocerium rod for your urban evacuation kit and just go with the Bic lighters instead. Again, let's toss the ferrocerium rod. Next, let's look at the cover items for emergency shelter. Dave Canterbury recommends including a queen-size wool blanket, a 5x7 space blanket, and 4 of the 55-gallon drum liners. But after doing some testing of those emergency bivvies, I think I would prefer having this queen-size wool blanket, even though it's a lot heavier. You could always include a couple extra Mylar space blankets. They don't take up a lot of size or weight. Every time we go camping or go on an outdoor adventure, we always make sure that we include our wool blankets. That's our preferred blanket of choice when we're gathered around a fire. I also think it makes more sense in a variety of different evacuation situations where you're sheltered in place, maybe at a local school or hospital, for example. You're probably going to want to have the warmth of that type of blanket instead of a Mylar bag. I think that both the ground tarp and the contractor bags are also fine to include in an urban evacuation kit. If you really wanted to shed some weight, you could go with 2 of the contractor bags instead of the 4. Because I imagine that bringing 4 is also for practice purposes at the Pathfinder School. So again, all of these cover items I think are warranted. Next, let's move over to cordage. So Dave Canterbury recommends including some 550 paracord and 100 feet of bank line. I think the paracord is definitely good to have in here, although the bank line might be better served in a wilderness survival situation. However, if you're making some kind of perimeter defense, for example, Canadian Prepper recently did a video on that, where you have some shotgun primers that are used as an alert system, and you could basically go Predator style like Arnold Schwarzenegger and make a perimeter around your shelter area. You could use something like bank line. Although with a 550 paracord, you have those individual strands inside of it that could probably replicate a lot of the things that the bank line would do. So if you're looking at shedding some weight from your urban evacuation kit, I can see a reason that you might want to omit the bank line and just go with the paracord instead. So let's do that for this video. Bank line's gone. The next C is for containers, so having a water bottle and a nesting cup. You could use the nesting cup for boiling water, for example, put it into your water bottle. This one's an insulated one. You'll probably want to have a single-walled one for most wilderness survival kits. I do think both of these are warranted to have in an urban evacuation kit, although I can see reasons for replacing the single-walled stainless steel water bottle and including something different like the Grail water bottle filter. This one's the GeoPress, which is really awesome, and using that with a nesting cup instead. After all, in a real urban survival situation, do you really want to spend the time to create a fire, to boil some water, or would you rather use something like a water bottle filter for quickly filtering that water and then moving on the go? So I'd probably say that a stainless steel water bottle could be replaced with something that provides a little bit more capabilities, but still having that nesting cup. The next C in the 10 C's of survival is for a compass, and Dave Canterbury recommends including a compass in addition to ranger beads. I think that both of these are fairly lightweight and they still make sense to have in an urban environment, although you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have a map as well. There's also some offline maps that you can install on your smartphone just in case the grid is down. The next C is for cloth and repair, and Dave Canterbury recommends including a 100% smog in addition to a number 14 sail needle. For me personally, I think the sail needle is better served in a wilderness survival situation. I'd rather have something like an actual repair kit that has a little bit more capabilities in it. This particular repair kit has a lot more capabilities. It has multiple needles, thread, and other things that you could use for repairing your shelter in addition to clothing. So I say replace the sailing needle with a more complete repair kit. And for me personally, I don't really like having smogs with my urban evacuation kits. I think they're better served for a military environment or a wilderness survival situation. I like going with something like the buff hat, which you could use similar to a bandana, but it also provides you with a lot of additional capabilities for sun protection and various ways that you could wear it as well. So for me, in an urban evacuation kit, I would probably replace the smog with the buff hat instead. The next C is for candling devices for illumination purposes. Dave Canterbury recommends including a headlamp. I definitely think that you should have a headlamp in your urban evacuation kits. It just makes sense. And make sure that you include some replacement batteries as well. I like going with either the lithium batteries for my emergency kits or the N-loop rechargeable batteries. The next C in the 10 C's of survival is for cargo tape, and Dave Canterbury recommends including an entire roll of Gorilla duct tape. I do think that Gorilla duct tape must be included inside of your urban evacuation kits, but I don't think having an entire roll justifies its weight. As you can see, this is pretty big and it is heavy. A lot of us preppers wrap our duct tape around an old card, for example, and use that. It's a little bit more compact and you don't have to carry quite as much duct tape for your evacuation kits. As far as how much of that duct tape to wrap around a card, what I do personally is have enough that I'm able to seal off a standard size door. For example, if there's a bunch of smoke coming in, I want to be able to seal off the door. So make sure that you include enough duct tape for the diameter of a door. One alternative solution is to go with a smaller roll of the Gorilla duct tape. So instead of getting the big 30 yards version of it, go with the 12 yards roll of the Gorilla duct tape. To seal off the perimeter of a standard door, you're going to need around 19 feet. So the 12 yards version of the Gorilla duct tape will do the job for that. And last, Dave Canterbury recommends including a combination tool like a Leatherman Multitool. Now, me personally, I think that a multi-tool is the #1 tool to have in an urban environment. However, I feel that a multi-tool is also an EDC tool, and so I don't want to have unnecessary redundancy in my urban evacuation kits because I already include a multi-tool as part of my EDC. So instead of having this particular combination tool, you could have a different combination tool like a 4-way Silcock key. Also, the Seattle Rapid Access tool or the C-Rat would be another great combination tool that you could use in your urban evacuation kits in replacement of a multi-tool, which you should already have as part of your urban EDC. So that's going to do it for this video on the 10 C's of survival and which ones are better served in an urban environment for an urban evacuation kit. What did you think? Did I get it right or did I get it wrong? Leave your comments below in the comments section. Now, as a fail-safe, we should probably just trust Dave Canterbury, just include all of the 10 C's of survival that are included for that wilderness survival equipment list and just include them in our urban evacuation kits and they'll probably do the job. However, I like optimizing things when I can, and so I think that there are some things that we could replace with things that are better served for an urban environment. So leave your comments below in the comments section regarding this particular video and stay tuned for the next video as part of this video series in which I'll be providing my top 10 urban preps to add on to the 10 C's of survival. So again, we're going to use the 10 C's as our foundation or base layer inside of our urban evacuation kits. Now I'm going to provide you with 10 additional items to include with those 10 C's of survival to give us a total of 20 items to include in our urban evacuation kits. So stay tuned for that video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.